Welcome to the MacroHabits podcast. I'm your host, Hannah. I am stoked for today's episode. We are going to be talking about something. I posted a reel on it a few days ago and I got a lot of feedback, and I felt that it was an area that needed to be talked about and I wanted to give more attention to, and that is food noise. I feel like food noise isn't something that's talked about frequently in like the health and wellness and fitness world, but it is something that I used to struggle with. And I've gotten quite a few DMs with girls asking about food noise, how I've navigated it, or if I have it, and all that stuff. So that is what we're going to be talking about in the bulk of today's episode. I wanted to quickly go over my high and low of the week. My high is I launched my workout program today, Curves and Core. When you guys listen to this, it will have already been out for like 3 weeks, but it is a good, solid 4-week program. Whenever I launch a workout program, they're always out for forever. So you can always go look into it or purchase it. If you have questions, you can DM me or email me. I just posted a reel with all of the info on it, with like the workout split, what it entails, what equipment is required, all that stuff. But it feels so good to have that checked off. And I've been in such an insane season in this season of life, and that kind of is bringing me to my low, which is struggling to manage stress. That is something that I've struggled with off and on for like the majority of my life. I think that I can be a stressed out person. I'm self-aware, and sometimes I can get a little bit too serious or too in routine or too rigid and regimented with things. And I've worked really hard in therapy over the past few years to become a little bit more fluid, like more, my therapist calls it type A Hawaiian, like a little bit more relaxed in some areas. And I've made major progress. But when I feel stress in multiple areas of my life all at the same time, I notice myself sometimes revert back to old habits or revert back to old mindsets. And that's how I've felt the past couple weeks. I've just had so many things going on, and a lot of these things are good, but when it's all happening at the same time, I think my body confuses excitement with anxiety, and then I can start to get ultra stressed, have more anxiety in general, and just not feel like my best self. And I have a lot going on with work. I obviously have Macro Habits, which the bread and butter of Macro Habits is my nutrition coaching program, which is my 12-week one-on-one program. I also write custom reverse dieting plans, macro splits. I do workout programs, and I do all the marketing for Macro Habits, so all the social media and everything. And although I have a team that helps me in those areas, it is a lot of pressure on my shoulders. And obviously, I just started the podcast too, which I am so excited about, and it's been so much fun and such a good business endeavor that I'm excited to continue to do. But it adds on another layer of work. So work is crazy, basically, but it's a good crazy. But with that being said, I'm also super close with my family and I have good friendships. I'm dating someone. So there's just like so many different areas of my life that I want to give attention to and want to give 100% in. And one thing that I'm experiencing right now is a little bit of burnout. I feel like I'm spread very thin in a lot of areas. So I'm trying right now to bring in some old like tools and tactics to help myself get back into a better balanced mental state. One thing about me is I don't like to sit in something negative. Like if I'm feeling a certain way that's not conducive to a healthy, happy lifestyle, I want to change it. Like I want to work on it. I'm a goal-oriented person. And so as I've been in this season of like high stress, I've been implementing in different, like I said, tools and tactics that have helped me feel better. I do feel like I'm coming out of it. And I wanted to share with you guys some of those things that have helped me. And a lot of this I've learned in therapy. The first thing I didn't necessarily learn in therapy, I think it was something that I wanted to work on when I started to go to therapy, which was my relationship with God. And I want to do a whole episode on religion and spirituality. I don't even know if that's something you guys would be interested in. If you would be interested in it, please drop a comment below or DM me, because it is an area of my life that I'm very passionate about and I've put a lot of work into. And my relationship with God is the most important thing in my life. I wake up every morning, I pray, and then I listen to like 15 to 20 minutes of worship music before I get into my day and start listening to music or podcasts or whatever I'm listening to at the gym. But my morning time is very sacred to me and really sets the tone for my day. And I've noticed a big shift in my mental health and just how I go about my day from starting it with God and being really intentional with that. Another thing that really helps me when I'm feeling like the weight of the world on my shoulders in all these different areas is making sure I'm being prayerful throughout the day. I obviously am good about saying my morning prayers, but I think one thing I've learned just in my spiritual journey is I can communicate with God whenever. I don't need to be like in a reverent state. And with the religion that I was raised in, that was something it was always encouraged to be in a very reverent state when you would pray. And something that I've learned just from not being active in the Mormon church anymore and just kind of like figuring out my spirituality is I can pray to God whenever. And I feel very confident in my relationship with God. And I feel that I can, and I do, I communicate with Him when I'm driving or even when I'm in different situations that you wouldn't think I'm praying. Like maybe I say a small prayer, and that really helps bring me peace and grounds me and just like brings me back to a place of everything's okay. It's not that deep. And I just feel a lot more peaceful when God is the priority in my life and He's the first person who I reach out to. And like I said, pray to. So that really helps me. And then the next thing is a tool that I learned in therapy, which is to simplify. Whenever I still go to weekly therapy. I love my therapist. He's awesome. He's really changed my life for the better. And I credit him, but I also want to give credit to myself because I've been action oriented in therapy. And that has been a game changer. When I first started going to therapy, I wasn't action oriented. I would just go in and I would like word vomit all this stuff and then leave. And although it felt good to vent it out and get it out, I wasn't taking his advice and then applying it to my life. Therefore, nothing was changing. Once I started taking his advice and applying it to my life, that is when my life changed and things started to shift. I started to progress. I started to just become a better person, become a better version of myself, all of that stuff. So, one thing in therapy that's helped is, like I said, I go in, I say a problem, and then my therapist, the first thing he says is, let's simplify it. And then when I simplify it, I realize, okay, it's really not that big of a deal, or everything's okay. It just helps me in my brain like compartmentalize and be able to move through the day in a happier state where I'm not constantly in this like fight or flight stress mode, which is kind of a default just with myself as I can be very kind of anxious and stressed, like I said at the beginning of this episode. So simplifying things really helps. And I encourage you to do it if you are someone that has a lot going on. When you simplify things, life is better and you just feel happier and less stressed, and you don't give energy to things that really don't require the energy that you might be giving it. Okay, last thing that helps me when I'm struggling to manage my stress is being intentional with filming. I do all the marketing for MacroHabits, which a lot of that is on social media, which is great. Social media is an amazing tool for an entrepreneur because you can create videos that reach different audiences, therefore bring in more business. And it's tough though when you are someone that films a lot of their life to know when to film and when not to film. And sometimes I've noticed in the past when I am filming too many parts of my day for consecutive days, I end up getting so much content, but there's not really a purpose for that content. And then I have all this content, I'm not really sure what to do with it. So I feel like lately I've kind of been in a state where I've been over filming and then I have like all this content and I feel stressed and overwhelmed, like I'm not doing enough. So one thing that I've done, I did this yesterday, is I sat down, I looked at my content calendar and I said, okay, I'm going to film this on this day, this on this day. I'm not going to film this day. Like really starting to be more intentional and structured with filming makes me happier and feel less stressed. I'm also on my phone less, which is a plus. I'm actually pretty good with my relationship with my phone for someone that is in social media and just my phone is a big part of my job and filming is a big part of my job. I do a pretty good job about not being on my phone when I'm with people. I've structured my content in a way where I don't really film with people. Like I haven't even showed my boyfriend on my platform, although he's amazing and he definitely is a huge help when it comes to filming. I feel like you guys have seen like little snippets of him. I kind of breadcrumb you guys. I don't know when I'll share him. I will at some point, but I don't know. It's just like a part of my life that is like sacred to me, and he's so special to me. And maybe will introduce him at some point, but I just have had things happen since dating him that has made me more protective over my relationship, which I don't want to get into on this podcast, but some people are like just not, I don't know. I'm actually going to stop talking and not talk about that, but sorry, maybe I'll talk about that in a future episode. But being intentional with filming is a game changer for my mental health. And like I said, when I'm structured with it, everything's better. And I think this can apply to anyone's place of work. Like everyone gets stressed out no matter what your area of work is. And when you can structure it, time block it, or bring in those tools to help you have more of a plan, that brings more peace of mind. At least for me. I'm very type A, like I've said a million times, but I just notice when I'm more structured and there's a plan, I'm more peaceful and I'm happier. So, although that was a very long tangent from the low, I am getting into a better place mentally again, and I feel like I am not sitting in it and I'm trying to be progressive in finding more balance. Okay, we're going to get into the bulk of today's episode, which is food noise. Like I said at the beginning, I'm really excited to talk about this. Like I said, I posted a reel with a bunch of different tools and tactics that I implemented in my life to help with food noise, because I used to struggle heavily with food noise. So if you are someone listening right now and you feel like it's consuming you, I promise you there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you apply some of these lifestyle changes or maybe try some of these things, I know that it will help you. And if you're consistent with it, you really can get rid of the food noise and eliminate it. I'm going to start with my original relationship with food, which is in my early 20s. I'm 29 now, so this is before I started tracking macros. I just was lost with food. I wasn't really sure what to do. I've always been someone that's worked out, and working out has always been a big part of my life, but I think the element of food was always stressful for me. I just never really knew what to do, and I was definitely more in like the fad dieting area before I started tracking macros. Like I did Whole30, I did intermittent fasting, like more of the carnivore approach, low fat, low carb. Like I've kind of done it all, and I couldn't stick with anything. Like I would be successful for maybe 2 or 3 weeks or even like a month, but after that I would revert back to my old ways, or I would just feel burnt out with it. And when I was doing these different fad diets, my food noise was the loudest, especially with intermittent fasting. I have talked about this on my platform before, but I am not a fan of intermittent fasting. And I don't think there's one right way to eat. I think that you know your body best. And if intermittent fasting works for you and you like it and you're happy, amazing. But if you are someone who's trying to do the intermittent fasting or trying to eat later in the day, or stop eating earlier in the day and it's not working for you and you're thinking about food all the time, then I think you should switch it up. And that's maybe not something that's healthy for you or your mindset. I know when I was intermittent fasting, that was also at a time when I was personal training and I was coaching at Orange Theory, and I was working the really early classes, and my intermittent fasting window was from like 12 to 7. And so I wouldn't eat till noon. I just remember my mornings were horrible because I was thinking about food the entire time, and I was starving and I had low energy, and I was just trying to make it to noon to be able to eat whatever I wanted to stay within that window. And once I would eat at noon, my hunger cues were out the window. I would eat until I was stuffed. There was no intuitive eating in that period of the window that I was able to eat in. And that just made me feel bloated after. I had indigestion. I felt like my energy was all over the place. I had major appetite fluctuation. And like I said, the food noise was really loud. So I don't encourage intermittent fasting because I don't like putting time restrictions on when I can or can't eat. Some days now I start eating at 7 a.m. Some days I start eating at 10 a.m. I really focus on eating when I'm hungry and stopping when I'm full. Obviously, I track macros with that. And so if I'm having an insane busy day and I'm out and about all day, I'm definitely going to front load my day with more protein and be strategic. but I don't put any time restriction on when I can or can't eat. And that's really helped alleviate the food noise. When I was doing, when I was like cutting different food groups out before I started tracking, that was also not good for food noise because all I could think about was what I couldn't have. So when I cut out sugar, all I wanted was sugar. Humans, like, we want what we want what we can't have, right? So if you tell yourself I can't have this, you're just going to want it more. And one thing that I've learned just in my relationship with food and my journey with tracking macros is I don't like cutting things out because then I want them more, like I just said. And when I am a little bit more aware of my portion control and like sprinkle in treats throughout the week, like I do now, I don't have these like insane cravings, or it doesn't overtake my mental state throughout the day of how I can't have a cookie because it's not Friday or Saturday or whatever the restriction I put on it. So basically, I just don't like, I mean, this is kind of getting me into the cheat meal mentality, which I am not a fan of, because when I was doing cheat meals, my food noise was really loud during the week. And then on the weekends, I'd feel like shit because I would eat whatever I wanted. And I was bloated. I had indigestion. I just didn't feel good. Like I said, you really don't have hunger. It's hard to like listen to your hunger cues in a cheat meal mentality because you have it for like 1 hour or one day of the week. And then once that hour is over, you can't have it anymore. So you obviously want to eat more of it and get it all out. But then after, you just don't feel good. So I wouldn't say I'm a polarized person. I would say I'm pretty open-minded, but I have some strong opinions on some things in the food realm, and I am not a fan of cheat meals, cheat days. I don't think it's good for someone's relationship with food. I have really never met someone that has done cheat days or is doing cheat days and feels that their relationship with food is really good. That's just with my experience and who I've talked to and clientele that I've coached. I don't like the cheat meal mentality. So, eliminating that good versus bad food mentality and labeling food as cheat meals, and like once I removed that, I feel that my relationship with food really improved and that food noise started to diminish. Another thing that helped food noise was reverse dieting. When I started tracking macros way back in the day, like in my early 20s, I was given I got a macro split from like a random girl, and I think it was around 1700 calories, and I felt really good with that. That was also more food than I was eating. I was probably more like a 13 to 1500 calorie range before I tracked macros. I just didn't have a great relationship with food, and I was kind of doing what every girl did, which was low calorie, low carb, like eat really clean on the weekdays and then eat whatever you want on the weekends. Like that's kind of the area that I was in, and just like maybe the time of, I feel like that was like the trendy thing to do at that time. And so when I started tracking macros, it gave me a lot more food freedom. And I really liked tracking macros because I was able to eat what I wanted. And it started to really teach me about the macro breakdown of food, which is the beauty of tracking macros. I don't think that you need to track macros for forever, but I do think tracking macros educates you and gives you the knowledge of the food you're eating, which is really important. It teaches you about the macro breakdown when it comes to grams of protein, carbs, and fat. And that was really something that was eye-opening to me when I started tracking. I had no idea the amount of protein I was eating. I associated carbs as bad and fat as bad, but really when I tracked macros and I was able to see how I was feeling really good with eating more of the right foods and having more portion control and just tracking my food, it really opened my eyes to, like I said, the like knowledge of food, which then stopped me from labeling food as good or bad. And I started looking at food for what it was in terms of the nutrients and how it made me feel. With that being said, after tracking macros for the first like 3.5, 4 months, like I said, I had a really good experience. But when I went back to this girl to get another macro split, she dropped me lower. So I think she dropped me to like right under 1600 calories, which was way too low for my activity level. I mean, at that point, I was doing Orange Theory once a day at least. I was coaching a ton of classes. I was extremely active. And she dropped me lower, which then kind of spiraled me into a bad relationship with tracking macros, and that food noise started to come back. So like food noise has ebbed and flowed for me throughout my 20s. And that was a time when that food noise came back pretty strong. And I was a little bit more stressed with tracking macros. I've tracked macros in an unhealthy way, which was at that point, and then I've tracked them in a very healthy way, which is at the point I'm at now, and why I started Macro Habits, which was tracking macros with an intuitive approach. But I've been on the side of tracking macros that isn't pretty and that I don't think is healthy, and I got way too low calorie. But I'm kind of grateful I experienced that because it really helped me start my business because I reverse dieted myself. And that's the next thing I'm going to say about what helped my food noise at that point, which was reverse dieting, which is slowly increasing your caloric maintenance over a period of time. I'm actually posting my reverse dieting episode this Friday. So if you are listening to this now and you're curious about reverse dieting, I have a whole episode about that you can go back and listen to. But reverse dieting really helped me because it increased my caloric maintenance, which gave me a lot more food freedom, and I wasn't in this like constant scarcity mindset. When I was too low calorie for too long, not only did I stop seeing results, but I was more stressed about food, and I was constantly trying to like eat smaller portions to be able to like make my calories go longer, which isn't healthy. I think that means you're at too low of a calorie number. And then when I reverse dieted and I was able to increase my caloric maintenance, like I said, the scarcity mindset diminished and my food freedom increased. And I just felt better overall. Not only did my body recomp improve, but my energy levels improved. My libido improved. I just felt happier and less stressed. So reverse dieting really is like the biggest key to success when it comes to eliminating that food noise. And kind of going, I know we talked about the cheat meals, but another thing that's really helped me with daily food noise is I don't just save treats for the weekend. Like I have treats throughout the week. I'm very disciplined and I'm intentional with the treats that I have, but I don't mind having a treat on a Tuesday. My boyfriend knows like I'm in a relationship now obviously, and we'll get ice cream on a Wednesday sometimes, and every once in a while it's spur of the moment, but he knows that I track macros and I like to be prepared. So he'll text me that morning like, "Hey, we should get ice cream tonight." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And then I'll kind of like be more protein focused or fit in the ice cream into my macro split. That's the beauty of tracking macros is you don't cut anything out unless you're intolerant to it. I don't have any severe intolerances. So I just love that I can eat what I want throughout the week and I can still stay on track to meet my physique goals and work towards my body recomp goals and all that stuff. So I would encourage you to sprinkle in treats throughout the week. It's honestly like you can have a treat and still see progress. And I am a product of that. I have thousands of clientele who are also products of that. I don't think that you need to save your treat for Friday, Saturday. I do think discipline is a good thing and it's good to be in control and watch your portions and pre-track it if you can. Obviously, there's all those tools and tactics that you can implement in. And I think that like seeing results for your physique requires discipline. So there are some times where it's a Wednesday night and I'm like, oh, a treat sounds really good, but am I just like in an emotional state or is it just because I'm bored? Like, I think it's good to ask yourself questions sometimes, but also I don't think it's bad to have a treat on a weekday and practice intuitively eating if it's not even planned. Like, if you followed me for a minute, you know I'm all about tracking macros with the intuitive approach. So there are moments in my week where I am intuitively eating, and then there's moments where I'm tracking macros. It's never an all in or an all out. I am all about the lifestyle approach with tracking, and it is something that can be done. There can be a beautiful balance between both, and I have created a business on it, and I am a product of it. So I'm really all about, like I said, sprinkling in the treats throughout the week. Okay, I talked about how I don't love intermittent fasting and how I don't think you should put time restrictions on when you can or can't eat. That, in my opinion, only makes the food noise loud. So if you are putting those time restrictions on, I encourage you to lift them and focus on eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. Another thing that was major for helping reduce the food noise was increasing my protein intake and front loading my day with protein. Protein is so important, and I know it's kind of talked about a ton now, and we hear it all day long, like eat protein, high protein, but it really is amazing what it could do for your body and your metabolism, and just in terms of helping you feel satiated and curbing your cravings and boosting your metabolism. Protein has the highest thermic effect which means your body burns the most calories digesting protein out of the 3 macronutrients. So when you're eating protein, you're boosting your metabolism. That should give you some motivation to eat more protein. And when you increase your protein intake throughout the day, you're going to feel more satiated, you're going to feel fuller. I eat about 150 grams of protein a day. I shoot for like 140 to 160 and it averages out to about 150. And when I hit my 150 protein, I really don't have cravings. Like I feel satiated throughout the day. I feel fueled. I feel good. And especially with front loading those 30 to 40 grams at the beginning of the day, that makes all of the difference in my cravings. If I don't eat a lot of protein in the morning, I definitely notice I have more cravings in the afternoon and late evening. So getting in that high protein meal as my first meal is a game changer in helping eliminate that food noise because I'm full. I'm not thinking about food. I feel satiated. I feel good. Therefore, my brain isn't thinking about my next meal because I'm already feeling really satisfied and good because I've had a lot of protein. I'm going to give you guys some of my favorite breakfast ideas. I am definitely a creature of habit and I hyperfixate on things. So sometimes I get really into routine with what I'm eating and I kind of eat the same thing every day and then I'll switch it up. I feel like a lot of people are like that too. I feel like we all have like our favorite at home meals that we make and we'll go through a cycle of eating them for like 3 to 4 weeks at a time and then we'll switch it up. One thing that I really never get sick of is my Greek yogurt cottage cheese bowl. I just posted a reel on this and I've honestly posted this meal for years and years. It's just so good. It's satiating, it's high volume. I can bulk it up if I need more volume or I need more fat and carbs. I can keep it pretty low calorie if I need to, if it's like a treat or a snack. And so I'm going to get granular with this Greek yogurt cottage cheese bowl because it is such a staple in my day-to-day eats. I love the Chobani zero sugar coconut vanilla Greek yogurt. There's a vanilla one and there's a coconut one. I think it's a coconut vanilla, but that's my favorite Greek yogurt. And then I will always do the low fat 2% cottage cheese. Good Culture is my favorite, but I'll also do like the Sprouts brand or the Nancy's probiotic one is good. And I'll do one Greek yogurt Chobani with 100 to 150 grams of cottage cheese. I'll mix that together. Sometimes I'll add in a stevia packet if I want a little bit sweeter, but most of the time with the flavored Greek yogurt, it kind of like fully emulsifies into the cottage cheese mixture and the flavor like takes over, so you don't need a stevia. But if I'm really wanting something sweet, I'll add a stevia in there. And then I'll add in some flaxseed or some chia seed powder. And then I will add in fruit. I am obsessed with blueberries. I pretty much eat blueberries every day. That's like my favorite fruit. So I'll do 60 to 80 grams of blueberries and then I'll do some type of granola. Catalina Crunch is like my go-to. It's a really good macro-friendly granola. It's also gluten-free. So if you are gluten-free, that's a good option for you. They just came out with this protein crunch granola too that's so good. So I'll do 10 grams of the peanut butter, protein crunch Catalina Crunch, and then 10 grams like the honey graham or the cinnamon Catalina Crunch cereal. And then lastly, I will do a drizzle of Clean Simple Eats sweet classic peanut butter. It's like my favorite peanut butter. If you track macros, it has like a really good consistency. So it's easy to drizzle over your bowl and weigh it out on the scale. And I love that Greek yogurt cottage cheese bowl. And I pretty much eat that every single morning. I'll make it a dessert bowl sometimes and I'll add in like chocolate chips or a little bit more granola, but that's kind of like my standard go-to one. Another breakfast I do is beef bowls. So I'll do 93.7 ground beef, saute it, obviously cook it over the stove, and then I'll add in some avocado. Sometimes I'll do sweet potato, sometimes I'll do cottage cheese, but that keeps me really full. Like if I'm ever feeling like sometimes in my luteal phase, I'm a little bit more cravey. And I feel like if I start my day off with that beef bowl, it really helps curb any cravings and keeps me really full. Another thing I love to do is chicken sausage and eggs. I tried it, like I said, getting that 30 to 40 grams of protein is key. And then another thing I'll do if I'm not super hungry in the morning is I'll do 3 hard-boiled eggs. And there's 6 grams of protein per hard-boiled egg. So when I do 3 of them, it's 18 grams of protein. And then I'll throw in some avocado or I'll do a protein bar. That's actually exactly what I ate before I came here. I had 2 hard-boiled eggs and a raw bar, which is a really good clean protein bar. It's the Raw Organics brand. I really like their protein bars. I just made a story about them on my Instagram, but they are super good, high quality bars. You have to refrigerate them. They don't really taste like a protein bar. They have a little bit more of like a cookie dough-like texture. If you leave them out of the fridge, they do get really crumbly. So you want to make sure you eat them right out of the fridge. But those have 18 to 19 grams of protein. So that with 2 hard-boiled eggs, I'm getting close to 40 grams of protein. Those are like my go-to first meal, first high protein meals that I'll do at the beginning of the day. Another thing that can help with food noise and just feeling full and satiated is paying attention to your fiber intake. This is something I used to be so good about, but honestly, I've gotten pretty lazy at it. And just in the last couple of weeks, I've been a little bit more aware of my fiber intake, trying to get around 25 to 30 grams a day. So paying attention to your fiber can really help with digestion, fullness, gut health, all of that stuff. The next thing that has helped with food noise is getting my thyroid checked, specifically because your thyroid is like the nucleus of your hormones. That's how my holistic practitioner explained it to me. And I'm going to do a whole episode about hypothyroidism and working with a holistic practitioner, what I learned, and how I got my thyroid back to a healthy level just recently, like not even 2 weeks ago. I got my thyroid tested and I am finally in the normal range. I'm like right on the edge because I have hypothyroidism. So my thyroid is underactive. So I'm right on the edge of like the green zone, which is the good zone, but I'm in the green zone. So I'm really happy about that. And I'm currently not taking the thyroid medication anymore because I really want to see if the things that I've implemented if I continue to do them, that my thyroid continues to improve and all that stuff. But getting my thyroid checked was really helpful because when I didn't know I had hypothyroidism, I had like extreme appetite fluctuation. My energy was so low. Like I just want to give myself a hug at that point because I had no idea what was going on with me. I just felt so low energy and I had never really even heard of hypothyroidism at that point. But I'm so grateful I went to a holistic practitioner who did like a full blood panel and was able to see that I had an extremely underactive thyroid. At that point too, I was doing spin 4 times a week. And like I said, I'm getting on a tangent with this. I'm going to do a whole episode about this because I think it's really important. And I know a lot of people struggle with hypothyroidism or thyroid issues in general. So I will do a whole episode on that. But getting my thyroid checked definitely helped because it gave me peace of mind that something wasn't wrong with me. And it helped me kind of regulate some of my appetite issues and ultimately helped me get into a better place with my hormones. Okay, last couple things when it comes to eliminating food noise is I gave myself permission to eat without earning it. I used to really associate like food with reward. And this kind of goes back to the cheat meal, obviously, which I've talked about heavily in this episode. But when I stopped treating food as a reward and just like allowed myself to eat all foods throughout the week and throughout the day within my macro split and portion control, all that stuff, I stopped having this negative mindset with quote unquote bad food. Like I don't look at a cookie anymore and think, oh no, that's bad for me. I look at a cookie and I'm like, okay, that's about 30 to 40 grams of carbs, 8 to 15 grams of fat. Like I have a general idea of the macros on it. Obviously it depends on the size and the type of cookie, but I don't look at it as bad. I just look at it for how it makes me feel and the macro breakdown of it. And that is why tracking macros is amazing for your knowledge of food. I feel like I'm stuttering in this episode and mixing up my words a little. So sorry about that, but I just really think it's important to not earn your food. You can have all foods, but it's all about moderation, portion control, and all that stuff. And that is really all of the things I have for what has helped me heal kind of my relationship with food, but most importantly, get rid of that food noise. I'm at a place now, I'm 29. So a lot of the stuff that I've talked about, like when I was doing intermittent fasting, that was in my early 20s. Like I've had years of trial and error and trying different things and figuring out other things. Like obviously there's been a lot of stuff with my thyroid and just my relationship with the food. I'm at a point now where I do have a really solid, good relationship with the food. I have a high caloric maintenance. And I really think the catalyst of that has been because of reverse dieting. If you're curious about custom reverse dieting plans, I have a start form on my website. You can always go fill that out. That'll get you in contact with me via email. You can always DM me. But I think reverse dieting is a step that should be taken pretty immediately if you are someone that is stuck in a low calorie deficit or struggling with that constant food noise. And go ahead and let me know too if you guys want a more in-depth episode on kind of I gave a good insight on my relationship with food in this episode, but I feel like I get even more granular with it. I think it can kind of be a sensitive subject. I've never had like an eating disorder, but I think I've experienced areas of disordered eating in my past, and tracking macros in a healthy way, in a balanced way, has really brought me out of that. So I can do an episode kind of tailored to that. And like I said, I'm also going to do an episode all about hypothyroidism and how I helped get my thyroid to an optimal functioning level. Or like I said, I'm getting there. I'm in the green zone. I'm on the edge, but I'm trying to get to the middle of that green zone. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day and a good week. I hope you guys have a good weekend. This episode comes out on Friday. I always launch my podcast episodes Friday at 5 a.m. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.